Welcome back. Let's see, pick a project, any project. What do we want to work on today? Let's see. How about this? This is asking to be worked on, and we've got some work that we'd like to do with it. So let's get it all serviced up. So if you don't recognize this machine, let me refresh your memory, or maybe you're new here and haven't seen this before at all. This is my early 1970s Allis Chalmers M65 grader. I bought this earlier this year at an auction. It didn't run in some earlier videos. We got this thing running, ended up pulling the head off and put a gasket in it, some other things. If you haven't seen that yet, check it out. It's on the same playlist as this, but I want to put this thing to work. I want to play around with it a little bit, and after getting it running, it has just sat in the shed. I haven't done anything with it. I see that most everything works, but the wiring is kind of a mess. The cab's a mess. There's supposed to be a plate there and a plate down here. That's no good. All of this is bad. Steering wheel, this brake doesn't work. These need adjusted. Don't know the shape of any of the fluid. These, I think these are chains in here. These cases, they've got fluid in them because they leak. The engine, I don't know anything about, so we're just gonna, I got filters, I've got fluids. We're gonna just service this thing up, order a few more parts, replace the muffler, the steering wheel, just kind of go through this thing where I can put it to work and feel comfortable running it all day without issue. Got the cab cleaned out quite a bit. Believe it or not, this is clean. Had a lot of stuff caked in the floor. This compartment was full of stuff before. Nothing crazy in there. There is a PTO shaft off something. One of the covers that's missing. I think this is the right side by your feet. Looks like window cleaner, lead substitute, the old window and door handles, little never sees locks for the Scarifier teeth, which I don't have any, windshield wipers, stack of spark plugs, so it must have, curious about that, voltage regulator, looks like some wrenches, funnels, nothing special in there, but all that was crammed under the seat. Now the wiring on this thing is a mess. Like, none of this is factory wiring. Somebody added all this stuff. So I'm going to clean up all, we got the fan and the wiper up here. We've got the beacon on the roof. I'm gonna clean all this wiring up and just get what I need hooked up, because they had several additional lights. This was additional, this would have never been on here. Just these forward most ones I think were factory. That one was not. And for what I plan to do with this machine, basic lighting will really do the job. I'm not gonna put it on a road crew and run it 24/7. Just some fun here and there. But we'll get all this mess with the switches and that power port cleaned up, and just, yeah, clean that mess up. Oiled the O-ring. This uses the same filter for the hydraulics, and I'm not sure if this has like a check valve in it or anything, so fluid might come running out, and hopefully I can change it quick enough. Okay, that's not bad. That'll do. These spark plug wires are a mess. They're like twice as long as they need to be. So let's fix that. That looks a lot nicer. And there's enough left over to make another set. There was a little bit of moisture in a couple of these boots, so I put some WD-40 in there and blew out the water. That should last a long time that way. While we're messing with the ignition, we might as well check the points gap and clean everything up in here. Should be a 20 thousandths gap. It's pretty much right there. I'll leave that alone. Just cleaning up the contact points inside the cap here. A little bit of emery cloth. I found a use for the funnel under the seat, filling the hydraulic reservoir. While we're down here, let's take a look at this rear differential fluid and what level it's at. Ooh, it stinks, I can tell you that. Oh no. That's no good. Dang it. Got some water in it. Now let's get that drained out. Yuck. Some thick stuff. It looks like the rear end shares fluid with the transmission, kind of like a whole transaxle. So this looks like the drain plug for all of it. So see what we get out. If it's as white as the fluid is in the back, it's definitely shared. Yep. That's definitely the same. Getting some heat built up in there, so hopefully that stuff will actually all drain out and we can get most of the moisture out of it. I've got the machine kicked up on kind of an angle here, so everything in the rear end transmission is floating out to the drain plug. And it looks like we pretty much got everything out of it. I'm going to pump a little bit in the rear and let it like kind of flush out for a second. There's a little bit of metal shavings in there. I think when I put this plug back in, I'm going to make sure there's a magnet stuck to the end of it. Make sure we catch any of this in the future. I'm going to stick a neodymium magnet to this. That way, in the future, any of the shavings in the transmission can just stick to this instead of floating around in the gears and the bearings. There wasn't much that came out of it, but this will be good for the future. Just add a little thread sealant to it. This is supposed to hold right about 4 gallons of 80/90. All right, the transmission and rear end is topped off. You can see in there, but got 4 gallons in it just below the threads. That was a mess like usual. If anybody has a suggestion for like a good hand pump that you can put in a 5-gallon bucket, leave a comment, because the whole pumping 80 or even 140 weight oil through a funnel, getting that through a funnel is not that great. So I've never found a good one. If you know one, let me know. While we're messing with gear oil, let's check the oil in these tandem drives. I know there's some in there because it's been leaking. Of course, plugs are stripped out. Nice. It's a lot more than I expected to come out. Let's get a real drain pan. Now these tandem drives have been dripping, and I figured it was just the seal's bad, but if they're this over full, there's a good chance they wouldn't be leaking anyways. See what for shape this oil really is in. It's a little colored, but it really ain't bad. I mean, it's, yeah. I'm gonna just bring this down to the correct level and leave it. Pulled the top plug out here. Just curious what it looks like inside the case. It looks oily. It doesn't look like there's too much moisture in it. It's a little bit of scale maybe on the top of the case inside, but nothing really concerning looking from here, so I'm okay with leaving this oil in here, just putting it at the correct level to start with. These tandem drive housings are pretty impressive. Like that's 1/2-inch steel, this whole case is. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but when we originally loaded this at the auction, I loaded it with the rear part towards the front of the trailer, and this thing's like 18 feet long and my trailer's like 20 feet long, and of course it didn't run. So he loaded it up, and the back of this thing sat the back of my truck like on the ground. It's so heavy in this area between the transaxle and the frame and the tandem drives, and these things are complete cast iron. They're like huge hubs. Just a ton of weight in the back. This thing with the cab and the Scarifier on it, I think is right around 11,000 pounds, which is close to the max of my trailer, but being it's so long, the weight transfer is not great. So when you run it forward, we just had the blade turn this way. So I think if you turn the blade and kind of shifted it forward, you could get a little bit more weight on the truck, but it worked. But just wanted to say how heavy this thing is in the rear. Now, while we're looking at oil and transmission stuff, so this this box here is a creeper transmission, is what the manual calls it. So this here is basically engages and disengages that high-low transmission, and the dipstick for that is right here. You can check this out. I've been working these hinges back and forth. That's with that hammer and pry bar. I think that's why this back window got busted, is these hinges all seized up, and it didn't move, and the window flexed and probably busted it out. It's the same thing with the front. You can see how it's whooped down here, so I got to take these apart and get that fixed up, especially this one, before we get a new piece of glass in it. So this thing only holds like a pint of gear oil. So it looks like we're right where it belongs. It's a little dirty. We'll probably change that in the future. Same with like the tandem drives. I'll service those eventually. I'll probably service the tandem drives again, because that transmission really should get serviced again. You know, like it had that moisture in it. We'll run it a while. Maybe next fall we'll change all the fluids. You know, this thing's, I don't know how long it's sat, but kind of want to stir that stuff up a little bit before you flush it out. But so that looks good, and let's take a look at this other tandem drive fluid. Let's check this left-hand drive. Hopefully it's not as overfull as the other one. Man, that one's got water in it. Alright, well, scratch that. This one's got to get flushed. Yeah, that's not what we want to see. It looks good inside the housing, but there's obviously some water in there. And if it's up high enough for that level plug, then that means there's probably a lot. This drive's getting drained completely down. Hopefully this doesn't just shoot water out. Yep, it's trying to. Man, I don't want all that water in my waste oil. Hang on. Wow, I can't believe this never froze and caused any problems. Pulled the fill plug loose on that one. Holy cow. All right, number 2. Number 3. I think I might need to check the drain plug on that other tandem drive, because maybe that's why the oil was so full. It's full of water in the bottom. Number 4. Oh, there, we're getting oil. 3.5 coffee cans. Oh my goodness. Oh no. I wasn't really planning on doing this. Alright, so what I just witnessed with the other side makes me need to check this one. usually your water will all settle to the bottom, which would explain why this thing is over full with oil. Doggone, get off there. So it's a good chance this one's got water in it too. Oh yeah. Yep, of course it does. Let's get our coffee can again. Crazy. Over a full coffee can of water out of this side as well. So I guess we're draining and flushing both tandem drives as well. I guess we're pulling these tandem drive covers, and I guess we'll just service them while we're at it. Because around these covers has to be where the water got in, so might as well pull them and seal them up so it doesn't happen in the future. Get this asphalt off of here. There's one. 2. 3. Well, aside from the goo in the bottom, looks pretty good in here. Chains have some slack, but I don't know. The rollers don't feel worn. The sprockets really don't feel worn. They like have barely any wear in them. You can kind of feel a little something there. Pretty heavy duty chain. Little bit of surface rust on some stuff. Inside of the case really isn't bad though. Let's check the other side out. Little surface rust down there. For the amount of water we pulled out of it, really wasn't bad. A little moisture in there. Taking a look at this right side, it doesn't look quite as good. Little rustier in this side. It's definitely had some moisture in it for maybe longer than the other side. And I'll show you around, see if you see what's wrong. I know it might be a little fuzzy for you, but if you look right here, that rusty area, that is where a bearing is, or it should be. And so this bearing right here is gone, is junk. There's no balls left in it or anything. And if you look at these sprockets, like I said, you might not get the very good view here, but they show more wear. This one has a lot on this side of the tooth, so the driven side going forwards. And this one actually looks like this chain has been jumping over these sprocket teeth. So we're gonna have to tear into that much deeper. I'm thinking that I'm gonna end this video here and we'll start in on this repair in the next one, because this thing is, I'm not really sure what I'm getting into here. I'm hoping that I can take it apart through, take these wheels off, block up the tandem drive, take this cover off and get into those sprockets, take the chains off, pull the sprockets off, and then take these, looks like 6 or 8 bolts out, and then take that bearing flange out. But it looks like it might have ruined the bearing flange. And if that's the case, we're not in good shape, because no parts are available for these at all. So yeah, let's check the oil in this turntable gearbox and see what we get. This is just 80-90 weight, but let's check down below to make sure there's no water in it like we're finding in everything else. That is a bit loose on the shaft, so that's worth noting. Might have to tighten that up. Yep, of course this has water in it too. Why wouldn't it? This thing must have sat outside quite a while before I bought it with all the water that's in it. I mean, it looks nice otherwise, but obviously we've got issues with water. All right, well, we'll let that drain too and drip out. Well, I can get a few more of these parts out of the way at least, so I'm not tripping over them. Got a new air filter. Been around a little while. Usually you don't want your air filters rusty. No hours marked on it though, so. Not forget our date and hours on the new one. It is the 1st of the year. 1/1/25. Happy New Year. A little late. And what do we got? 26:06 hours. I don't think those hours are correct because, well, the hour meter doesn't work, but hopefully by the time we're done rehabbing this thing, that meter will work. I'll lose your gasket. Let's see about getting this steering wheel swapped out. Came loose pretty easy. Most of the hardware on this thing I've been soaking in penetrating oil, so I don't have to fight it too much. Know where to get a puller on this thing. I can get like a brass hammer and pull on it and smack it. This might get easier. give it one whack. If not, now I can get a puller on it. That's the problem with it, is all the spokes have come loose. Now I'm messing up the threads. Let me just get a puller. There you go, let go. Perfect. Okay, it should be the new one in here. Alright, here's a new wheel. Don't think it should really matter which way I put it, because being a hydrostatic steering, it will go, it's never going to center itself. That'll do. Now, I do not have the center emblem for this wheel, and I'll put a picture of the one I'm looking for. There's aftermarket ones, but I don't think they'll hold up like the factory one will. So if anybody has one of those, you know, shoot me an email, and maybe we can make a deal on it. That looks nice and good and solid now. We just got to avoid pulling on it and breaking it like the last ones were. All right, so I was hoping to make this video in a way that it was essentially a service on this machine. We were going to change the engine oil, the filters, check all the rest of the fluids, top them off or change them if we needed to. I didn't expect the water in the transmission rear end, mainly because this dipstick up in the cab I thought went to that, and that's just the auxiliary transmission, so that was kind of a false indicator when I bought it. I didn't expect the water to be in these, especially since there was silicone around all of them, so my thought was they would be sealed up well. And I definitely didn't expect the right side tandem drive, this center bearing, to be out. We can't use this machine with that. It looks like they've run it for a while like that, with that bearing going out, and I've driven it around and never noticed it making a noise or anything. You may only notice it maybe like turning or something. I don't know. But that wasn't disclosed at the auction. I doubt they even knew about it by what I see, because this side, I mean, I don't know. This one's got some silicone on it. It doesn't look like the covers were off recently. I don't think this cover has been off in a long time. Not to say it's never been off, but I don't think they knew that was bad. But I believe what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this the end of this video. We got started on the project. I don't plan to abandon this. I plan to fix it and get it out of the shop. So we still got to fix that bearing. We got to do some work on the radiator. We've got to, what else? The wiring's still a mess. This was going to be just one video, but now with this being broken, I don't have a manual that goes over the tandem drive. All the manuals I have don't include that, so I'm gonna see if I can find one, but I'm hoping just that cover gets removed and we can remove the wheels, remove that cover, pull the chains, and work through that cover without pulling this whole tandem off. I don't think I'm gonna have to do that. I think we can fix it without completely tearing this thing apart. But I'd like to get a manual and see what that says. But yeah, so I'm going to flush the tandem drives out and clean everything up, and then we'll start the next video with fixing that bearing. That's going to be essentially the main part of it. But everything else looks pretty decent. I'm not too surprised by anything else, so it's not that big a deal. I didn't expect that though, so it's kind of a bummer. So with that all being said, I'm officially going to end this video. Hopefully it's not a disappointment. If anything, hopefully you look forward to more videos in the future on fixing this thing. And I'd like to get it out and use it, so I definitely want to get it going. But if you like this kind of stuff and you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Leave a like if you like the video, or a comment. What do you think should happen here? But not the end of the world. We'll get it fixed. Just hopefully there's no longer available parts damaged. If that's the case, we can have parts made. Not the end of the world, but just hopefully the housing and stuff is not ruined. But yeah, so hopefully you'll tag along and watch these videos in the future on this grader. And I do appreciate y'all watching, and I'll see you on the next one.